All right, you guys, we are live. We are live on a Tuesday evening. Thank you guys for being here. We don't have a lot of questions, so we won't be on here long. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section. We're happy to answer them. Um, we had a good shadow session on house tour on this past Sunday where we looked at
Yep.
about four different properties in Baltimore, uh, all of which were properties that could be purchased. Two of them at the auction, and then we looked at a property that was renovated, and so that was good. And so the value of these house tours, these shadow events, is you actually get to go out and see what's available to purchase. We ran over numbers for each one of them, what should be offered, whether or not they met the Burr method or not, the Burr formula. We talked a little bit about financing, and so it was a really good event. It was raining, so we were serious because it was raining the whole time. But it was good. We saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. Went to some little challenge with some good neighborhoods, good streets, good blocks, some little challenging blocks. But all in all, we were in Patterson Park, and what was telling to me was the group was willing to walk from one house. We went to one house, the second house, and then the third house was in walking distance, a few blocks down. They were willing to walk in the rain. But what it told me was it's a decent neighborhood. And so we talk about A, B, C, D neighborhoods. This would be sort of a C neighborhood, but good enough to want to invest. And so which Patterson Park is. And so they actually walked. And so I think that was good that they were able to walk to the next house and walk back with no hesitation whatsoever. And so I think the houses, I think one was up for auction. Starting bid was around 30 or 40,000, and the other one was somewhere around the same. And then like I said, we finished. I think I said we finished the tour with a property that was completely nicely renovated, still within blocks from all the other houses, but just on a much better street. So we were able to see the differences. We talk about Baltimore being block by block, and so we went, over a couple blocks, and it was just a really nice block house that was completely renovated, on the market for 289, if I remember right. And and so it was a good event. And then we ended up in Little Italy at an Italian restaurant, ate some Italian food. So it was good. So if you guys have an opportunity to go to one of those events, I would highly recommend. A lot of the investors are networking with each other. Um, the real value, though, is to be out in the field, seeing these properties, getting the opportunity to. I see Dana on. Dana went to a house tour shadow event in DC over a year ago. It was Ashland Auctions, and he actually came back and bidded on the property and won. Dana did, Dana Lewis, and so he bid on the property and won. So same thing that we did Sunday. He did bid on that property that we showed, and he won the bid. He owns the property now. He's renting it out to veterans, where he's doing very well, and so it works. And so we're I think we're scheduled for, I think it's
May 20th.
May 20th. We're going to do another one. We're going to do one right here in Prince George's County, Maryland. So we should be sending out a link for that pretty soon. And so it's free for the Platinum Coaching students. If you guys are not a Platinum Coaching student, you would want to be one, you could call me, call Keith. That's part of that program. I think there is a cost if you're not, but we highly recommend being a Platinum Coaching student because you get everything. You get one-on-one training. You get all the forms, contracts that you need, access to our mastermind, monthly mastermind, accountability partner, the ability to partner with us. and then just access to deals. I think that's the main value of the program. All right, Keith. So let's go ahead. And again, you guys, we didn't get a lot of questions. We'll probably be in and out of here in about 30 minutes. But we're happy to answer your questions. If you have some questions, go ahead to the comment section and put some either comments or questions in there. So go ahead, Keith, fire away.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And for everyone that did attend Sunday, we had a good time. It was, despite the rain, it was good to get out and network. And like Greg says, be active. And so really, really good. So you should really consider May the 20th, guys. So Greg, Jade has a question, as she has a couple of questions. Greg, can you walk through the seller financing again, using an example? And we also would want to know, what are the pros and cons of, if any, of seller financing?
Okay, so we did talk about seller financing actually on Sunday, and I gave some examples, but basically, and so I bought a property in DC many years ago, and I negotiated a deal where it was 100% seller financing. So the seller held the first mortgage. I didn't have to go out and get a loan. They held the first mortgage. It was a condo in DuPont Circle, and we did an owner financing deal where I made interest only payments. I don't recommend this now. I wish I had done principal and interest payments, but I did interest only payments to the seller. We went to settlement. House was deeded in my name. They just became the bank, and so the financing was, I made interest only payments for 5 years, and then in 5 years, the loan ballooned, and I had options after 5 years. I could have paid it off, refinanced and paid it off. Could have sold it. Like, I had options, and so there was a lien on the property. The financing was a lien, just like there's a lien on the property when you go out and take a loan out from a bank. It's the same lien as if it was a bank. And so there was a lien on the property. If I didn't make my payments, they could have foreclosed on me. And so that's basically what it is. The benefit in that case was, it was a year where it was a buyer's market. They were having a hard time selling the condo. For me, it was wonderful because I was 23 years old, and I really probably at that time couldn't even get financing, or it would have been difficult. So it gave me 5 years to prepare, even though, a year after that and a year after that, I bought houses. But it just gave me time to get financing on that property. The advantage for the seller was they was able to get a buyer for their property using that creative financing strategy. They didn't have to pay capital gain taxes because there was no capital gain, because I didn't actually give them a lump sum. I gave them the lump sum in 5 years. They made money on the interest only payments. That was all profit to them. And then they got their money in 5 years. So those were the pros. The only con that I can see is, like, if I had made the payments, then they would have had to spend money to foreclose on me. And so I think that's the only con. You just run risk on the seller, on the buyer not performing, or the buyer getting other liens and judgments on the property, or not paying the taxes, which becomes the superior lien. And so the taxes get paid first. And so those would be the cons, but there's lots of benefits. And again, if I had done it all over, if I had to do it all over again today, I would make those payments in principal and interest. So in 5 years, I would have been paying down just a little bit down on the principal. So that's one of the things I learned along the way. But that was many years ago. Like I said, I was 23 years old when I bought that property. So if you can, and in this market, I gave the example Sunday of one of our coaching students is negotiating a deal now with one of my real estate agents where one of my real estate agents who owns the property, and it's in Patterson Park. It's turnkey. It's a turnkey property. She renovated the property, and then she's selling it turnkey. She's already got a Section 8 tenant. She's taken a second, and so our coaching students purchasing the property for $175 turnkey. She's financing, I believe it's 110. She's financing 110 with the seller, which is one of my agents, taking back a mortgage for the balance, $65,000. And so the benefit to our coaching students for buying a property is I believe the way it's set up is she's going to be making principal and interest payments on the lower amount of the 165 at a lower interest rate than her first mortgage. And again, the capital gain taxes so now the seller, they don't have to pay as much capital gain because they're actually buying the property for a lower amount, 110. And then the way they've set it up, I think it's in 2 years, our coaching student's going to refinance and then pay off that $65,000. And hopefully and within 2 years, interest rates would have gone down. And once interest rates go down, they'll then refinance and then pay them off. And so they're not going to be financing as much. And so it's just a really good strategy, owner financing. And we're in a market where you can do that because interest rates are high. Financing is hard to get because of interest rates. And so owner financing is something that you should be offering on almost every deal, whether it's a first mortgage, like in my case many years ago, or it's a second mortgage. In the case of our coaching student now, I'm getting our agent to take back a second. And so that's basically it, Jade. If I didn't answer your question or you have any more questions, just go ahead and put them in the comment section. But that's what owner financing is. You do put a lien on the property. One of the concerns of the seller was, well, what happens if they don't pay? And you put a lien on a property just like any other mortgage company. You are the bank. In that case, you're the second lien holder. But the first lien holder has a lien on the property. And so you put a lien on the property as well. And then you lift the lien off once, you go to settlement, they refinance to pay you off. And so that's how that works. All right, so Tamika has a question. Can you clarify how seller financing helps alleviate capital gain? And so Tamika, in this case, let's say that she didn't take a second. She would have to pay capital. She would make an extra $65,000. So she'd have to pay capital gain taxes on that extra 65. And so now, today, she doesn't have to because she's financing that 65,000. She'll then have to pay that 65,000 in 2 years, not today. And in 2 years, who knows? She may be in a different tax bracket. Who knows? And so that's why, because she's making less money now, but in the end, she actually makes more because she's going to be making interest every month. Between now and 24 months. So she'll be making interest on that money. And then she'll get that lump sum once that loan is refinanced. And so Dana's asking a question. Let me just put it up here. And she is gaining interest. Yep. and she's gaining interest on that second. Absolutely. I don't want to share who they are, but you'd like to learn more. Yeah, I mean, so if you guys have any further questions about that, just let me know. If you have any further questions, just put them here or DM me or just give me a call. But I think in this market, creative financing should lead the day. I recently did a owner financing where I bought the property last year in this same section, in this same area, Patterson Park, actually one street over from the foreclosure we looked at, where I bought it for $50,000 from a private owner. I gave her $25,000 at settlement, and she financed the other 25, where I had to pay the other 25, I think, in 3 or 4 months. So that's owner financing. She took back a promissory note of the 25. And my goal was within that period of time to have renovated the property, and because I had started renovating the property while I was waiting on settlement, and refinance and pay them off. And so that's another strategy that you can do, just exactly what I did. And you can actually do those that went on a tour on Sunday. You can call those owners and negotiate with those owners prior to settlement. I mean, prior to the auction. And within that negotiation, you can offer some type of owner financing. I had a gentleman in Baltimore. He had 3 properties not too far from where we were Sunday on Rogers Avenue. I never forget it. And he was an older gentleman, retired from the government, wanted to move back to his hometown of Sumter, South Carolina. He wanted to sell the properties, but he didn't want that capital gain on his taxes. Didn't want to pay taxes on that money. He just wanted the interest. And so I came real close. He had all 3 of the properties rented out. Problem was he wanted too much for the properties. And I negotiated with him for a long time, like 8 months, close to a year. We would go back and forth, but he just wanted too much. Like he just didn't fit the Mayo formula. But he didn't want the lump sum of money right away. He wanted to make money every month. He wanted to make the interest every month. And then he wanted to do it for 5 years. He knew in 5 years because he was retiring, he'd be in a lower tax bracket. So he wanted the capital gain there then. But he wanted money every single month, those interest payments. It says for lease options, are the terms 2 years as a minimum? Actually, on a lease option, Karen, is 1 year as a minimum. 1 year as a minimum. And so depending on what your strategy is, if it's your strategy just to sublet it out and get the cash flow, then you want to extend that longer. If your goal is to buy it, just get your financing with the year, wait until you have the money or your credit gets better or interest rates go down, it's 1 to 2 years. So another property that I purchased years ago, I did a lease option on it. Key Pine Tree Way, the one in Bowie. I did a lease. I did a 2-year lease option. Again, I was 30 by then when I did that one. And so I did a lease option for 2 years. It was at the time 30 years old. It was like a house of my dreams. It was it's a colonial 2-car garage, middle of the cul-de-sac, back to a lake, big yard, big deck. For me at 30 years old, it was like a dream home. And I was like, I can't buy this. I just can't buy it. I can't afford it. Again, it was in a bad market. I offered a lease option and they took it. And so I said to myself, I'm gonna hustle for 2 years and I'm gonna make sure I qualify. And in 2 years, I qualified refinanced, paid them off, and I stayed in that house for about 13 years. All right, let's see. Did we answer all the questions? I think we did. All right, what else you got, Keith?
So Jade has another question, Greg. Let's see. Do you recommend obtaining a separate LLC for property management / rent collection versus property acquisition? So a separate LLC for property management / rent collection versus property.
So if Jade is a property manager, if she's saying that she's a property manager managing not just her properties but other people's properties, then I would say yes, get an LLC. But if she's saying that she's managing her own properties, then no, you don't need an LLC for that.
So in that first option, should she separate the LLCs?
So the answer is, if she's setting up a property management company where she's starting a new business to manage properties, then not just her properties, but other people's properties, that's a whole separate business. That's a whole EIN number. Yes, you need an LLC for that. But if she's just collecting rent on her own properties, no, you're just collecting rent. You're just managing your own properties. You don't need an LLC for that.
Okay, very good. So Tamika has some questions, Greg.
Didn't Tamika already ask a question?
No, that was Jade.
Oh,
Tamika asked a question maybe through on your side, but she sent me some questions, Greg.
I'm just playing with you, Tamika.
So Tamika is looking for some guidance on picking a person to make dials, a virtual assistant. Wanted to get some guidance on picking out a caller, training them, getting them started. And then the follow-on question is, how long do you think it takes to train someone to get them ready? So I did answer her questions one-on-one, but I have some thoughts on that. What are your thoughts, Greg?
Well, we just hired this company, RivaGlobal.com, where they do all the training. They do everything for you. It's sort of an all-in-one company where they so we interviewed like 4 or 5 people, right? And we had the option, if we didn't like any of them, we could have got back on and interviewed more. But we interviewed about 4 or 5 people. We picked one. All this is virtual. They're all in the Philippines, and the managers were on the call with us as well. And so we separately interviewed about 4 or 5 callers. We chose one. Riva Global actually manages them. They do role playing. They train them on making the calls. Most of them already are familiar with dialers. I mean, they're telling you which dialers. As a matter of fact, we've been using Mojo Dialer, but they recommended, what's the new one that we just got?
Call Tools.
Calltools.com. So they recommended Calltools.com, and I did the research on it and interviewed them, and it's like, yeah, let's go with them because Mojo is great. Mojo has a triple dialer that makes 3 calls at a time. Call Tools makes 12 calls at a time. And so it's a full virtual call center where you can get a number of different virtual assistants on that one dialer. And it's making 12 calls at one time. So you can get through, just a lot of calls. And so to answer Tamika's questions, I think we're busy. We're all kind of busy with what we do. Some of you guys are working full time. I know I'm busy with what I do. I don't necessarily have the time to role play with them, to train them on a daily basis. With Riva Global, you get a report every day. They what you describe it, Keith, because you work closer to them than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So they do give you a daily report, and then once a week, there's a kind of a middle person that manages the caller. So you have weeklies with them as well. And so, yeah, Greg and I, we're trying to step up our game with respect to, using those virtual assistants to get those calls, get those dials. But, that VA is also, they could do other things, social media, admin work. And Greg is using them in those areas. As far as the call making dials, they have really good phone numbers that you can purchase, so that you're not you're not being viewed by the dialer as a scam number. So for every 75 dials, they recommend another phone number, so you can get the other phone numbers in which the dialers would dial. Regarding, Tamika, your question about how long does it take to get someone trained, they come halfway trained. The verdict is still out on Riva, the company we're using now, because we just started using them. But in the past, I would say roughly around 3 weeks to 4 weeks, you're going to know enough to know if they're making progress. And it's not just the fact that they're setting appointments. It's also you can run metrics on how many follow-ups are they getting. As Greg likes to say, the fortune is in the follow-up. So, we want them, in a 4-hour period, setting a couple of appointments, maybe getting 10 to 15 follow-ups. That'd be a good gauge for you, for anyone out there that's looking for, a virtual assistant. But to Greg's point, it works. It works. And for us busy people, now we can kind of, move on to other things, knowing that someone's making those dials. I would say this too, in closing, I think that we as investors, we don't role play enough. We have scripts, and of course we have scripts for our platinum coaching students, but also we got to role play, because it's got to kind of come from your voice or that virtual assistant. So I highly recommend that, in addition to the training that they're giving them, to make sure that some role play time is included as well.
And so, and then also, you're paying for all that we just described. You're going to get a manager that's going to manage them. They do all the role playing for you. They do all the training. You pay for that. And so you pay for that, in that they're a little more expensive than what we're used to. And so we're used to paying around $750 an hour. I think we hired somebody, was it yesterday or today, from Upwork, and we're paying them $750 an hour. Riva Global, that comes sort of an all-in-one package, is $1250 an hour. And so we went ahead and paid the $1250 just to see if this company would work, because it's just going to save us a lot of time. And so you kind of get 2 people, really 2 or 3 people, for that one price of $1250 an hour. You get a manager that's going to manage the virtual assistant, and then you even get a manager who manages the manager. And so, and all that training, role playing, all of that, all for $1250. So we're giving it a shot. We hope it works out. If it works out, $1250 is like an hour's negligible. And we're only using them for 4 hours a day. So you can just kind of do the math. Now, if you want to do the training, the role playing, all of that, then yeah, you could get a virtual assistant for half as much as what we're paying. I mean, I've looked up virtual assistants where you can get those for like $5. You can go to Upwork and get them for $5 an hour. But now you're going to have to spend the time to do. And Keith has done that in the past, over the years. He's done training, role playing every morning, that kind of thing. But it's just a lot better, like anything else, when they come trained. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to try it out and see. And so far, so good. We have had some appointments, and so far so good. And I think someone's asked is yeah. So the calltools.com is a power dialer. I mean, anytime you're dialing 12 dials at a time, that's a power dialer. And so right now we're using the power dial. If you guys are interested, we've got a contact there that we can send you our contact at Call Tools.
As a matter of fact, Greg, one of our coaching students has hired Riva.
They hired Riva? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. One of my real estate agents, I think, has too.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend it to him. All right, what else we got cooking?
Should an assisted living facility be one level?
I think preferably assisted living facility should be one level. Mm-hmm. That's, because you're dealing with baby boomers, older people. It's harder for them to go up and down steps. Now, can you have an assisted living facility that has an upstairs? Absolutely. And so I've seen them. And so, yeah, but it's preferable to have everything on one level.
Right. And for you, Greg, would you invest in a row house property in Baltimore, assisted living facility?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you would have to do your research and have a good reason for why you want to even do an assisted living facility. It almost makes no sense to do just one. You've got to do a minimum of 3 or 4 for the numbers to make sense, because you've got like a payroll. And so you've got to pay people. So it's easier to spread that payroll over 3 or 4 properties versus just one.
Right.
If you're trying to maximize your rental income, I had a conversation. Some of you guys know Babatunde. He may be on this call. He's one of our students. But anyway, I had a conversation with him yesterday morning in the gym, 6 o'clock in the morning. We're on the treadmill. And he's got Dana would know this. He's got a 5-bedroom detached home in District Heights. Actually, Dana, who's on the call, wholesaled that deal to him. So those of you who wonder, do we do deals within? We do. So Dana found this property, wholesaled it to Babatunde. Babatunde did renovations to the property. 3-bedroom house, big basement, put 2 bedrooms in the basement. So he's got 5 bedrooms and I believe 2 baths, or maybe 3. But anyway, he told me yesterday that his property is fully renovated. I'm gonna do the math. Dana's probably saying now you think it's a good idea because you talked to Babatunde. Because I always tell Dana I don't like the idea of the veterans. Babatunde, Baba for short, he's getting $950 a room times 5. Baba is getting $4,750 for his 5-bedroom house in District Heights. He's getting almost $5,000 a month. His note is probably going to be around $2,000. So he's going to be, that's just my estimate, once he refinances. So he's going to be like.
Does he have market rate renters? Or
no, he's got veterans. He's got veterans that pay per room, and they're paying $950 a room. And so $950 a room times 5 rooms, and he's fully leased out. It's $4,750. And I said, wow. I mean, there's a downside to that, which I don't like the downside. That's why I haven't done it. Downside of it is, number one, all the tenants have to get along. So you run the risk of that, because it's basically a rooming house for veterans. And then it's turnover. I think he said he's got one of the tenants is leaving. And so now he's got to quickly possibly do some light renovations, but maybe not. So Dana couldn't wait to put this in here. I tried to tell you, and he even put "I tried to tell you" in all caps. It's like he's trying to cuss me out. I tried to tell you. But yeah, he did try to tell me. But there is a downside to it, and Dana even knows there's a downside to it, because those programs don't, those tenants, it's designed as a transitional house for them. It's not designed for long-term tenants. I think at max, I mean, Dana could tell us better, but at max, they're there for a year or two. They try to wean them off of that program. And so you're always having to fill a room, which if you have the right contacts, and these guys do. These guys got this girl named Lisa. And so she's filling those rooms up. She's got to connect the veterans at VA. And so she's filling them up. And if she was to go away, or, it's just, this is a downside to that. And so that's why my preference is Section 8, because even though I'm getting a lot less every month, I'm still making a positive cash flow. But these same Section 8 tenants have the ability to pay off my mortgage, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where these veterans are there. Dana, correct me, a maximum of 2 years. They're there, or is it a maximum of 1 year? I think it's 2 years. Yeah. So there's turnover there, and I don't like that turnover. It's just more work for me to have to worry about, versus just having a tenant. I know if I do a good job with that house, that tenant's going to be there. And every now and then I may have to respond to something with the house, and that's it. And that's every now and then. All right. Did we answer that question?
Yep. That's all the questions I have, Greg.
Oh, okay. All right. So Dana is saying no maximum. He said, I found out for some programs. Oh, so some programs, and you have to share those with us, Dana. There's no I think minimum time for them to be there. So they can be there much longer, which is good. I do like the cash flow. It's just, I'm just busy. And so, and Babatunde said the same thing. He was like, now I got to go find me another tenant, so I got one moving out. And so I remember many years ago, Tammy had a rooming house in New Carrollton, and she didn't have veterans. She just had whomever, and it was just, I feel like you kind of need a property manager for those, because it's just a lot of in and out sometimes. Oh, so Dana says that the same girl manages the property for him. So that's sort of a coup. She manages the property, and she does tenant replacement for him, or tenant placement. Good. All right, you guys. Let's see. Johnny has a question. Let's see. So Dana is saying he doesn't have to do anything. That's a good deal, Dana. That's a good deal. And then with those numbers, you can afford to pay a property manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Johnny, right now, I don't really use any type of software. My accountant uses QuickBooks, but I don't use any type of property management software. I have in the past. We've used Buildium and Yardi, but right now I just give all my financials to my accountant, my bookkeeper, and she uses QuickBooks. Can you speak about how to find a good hard money lender? Let me just put this up here. A good hard money lender. I'm at the point now where I'm searching for financing. And so depending on where the property is, I would say here in the DMV, we use, and those that are in the Platinum Coaching Program, it's in your Coach Accountable. My go-to is a company called Commercial Lending. I like them because I get very, very favorable rates, but they do have a program where they give, and they still have it even in this market, 10%. It's 10%, 10% interest, no points. And they've had that program forever. 10%, no points. 10%, no points. Now, just keep in mind that the 10% is not amortized over 10 years, over 1 year. So it's 10% whether you sell the house in 6 months or it's a 6-month loan, but they'll extend it free for an additional 3 months if they see that you're making progress. But it's 10% whether it's 6 months or 9 months. It's 10%. And so just keep that in mind. So they're a good company nationally. I would say Lima One, lima1.com. If you're in Baltimore, I would say Pimlico. A lot of our students have used Pimlico.
Mm-hmm.
If any of our students are on here, what hard money lenders are you using? And so a lot of them in Baltimore have used Pimlico. Dominion Financial is good in Baltimore. They're all like Baltimore based. They'll lend in DC or PG County too. But a lot of the companies outside of Baltimore, they don't lend in Baltimore. So commercial lending is not going to lend in Baltimore. But anywhere, Virginia, Maryland, DC, they'll lend there. And then I would look for a company like commercial lending that there's no monthly payments. So I don't make monthly payments. And so you wouldn't either. If you use them or another company. Jeff has a company. What's Jeff's company? Just right up the street from me. You remember the name of his company?
Jeff, no.
Jeff Levine.
Yeah.
It'll come to me. But our go-to, and it might be in Coach Accountable, Keith, Jeff's company.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to DM me or call me, I can give you some other companies. But yeah, I would look at commercial lending. They're a good company. I've used them for years, for many, many years. They come to speak at my boot camps over the years, last 10, 15 years. I think a lot of our coaching students have used them. What I like about them too, Justin, is they have their own money. And so they've closed me in 2 days. Their preference is 2 weeks. But if I've got a deal that needs to close quickly, they have their own money. And so they lend their own money. They don't go and raise money from other private lenders to lend to you. They have their own money. And so that's what I like about them as well. And so Dana says he's pleased with them as well. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any other questions, you guys? Any questions or comments from those that went Sunday? Questions or comments about what we looked at Sunday? I'm seriously considering that property on Kenwood. I'm considering that property to bid on. It didn't appear to be, other than the smell, a lot of work. I do want to say this for the ladies. There was I shouldn't say this, but there was a dead rat in there that you guys didn't see. I think we saw a dead bird.
There's a dead bird in the first property on the top floor.
Yeah. I was trying to kick I was trying to kick everything to the side so they wouldn't see. But if they did see, they wasn't scared. They was all through that house, those houses. Okay. Anything else, you guys?
Good questions tonight, however. Good questions.
Hey, Keith, Ralph is saying that he submitted some questions. Did you get his questions?
No, I'm not sure where they. Let me check my.
Let me try to check real quick, Ralph. Or unless you want to type one or two of them into the in the comment section. I'll try to check the email one more time, but I didn't see it. Yeah, Dana says that comes with the territory. Yeah, we've got some pretty strong females. Females are starting to take over, aren't they? And we actually had a discussion about that at lunch. We talked about, how females are somewhat disrespected in this male-dominated industry, and kind of what to do about it. So we did have that discussion. Anything else, you guys, while I look at Ralph's questions? Yeah, Ralph, we may have to, it must have slipped by us somehow.
I just got forwarded some questions, Greg. Hold on for a second. Let's see here. Okay, Greg. Yeah, here's a couple of questions that Ralph has. Number one, what is the best method to know the type of property and pricing your buyer may be interested in?
So I think the discussion needs to be, the questions need to be, you need to ask your buyer what they're looking for, price range, area, what their strategy is. And then, you could use PropStream as a tool if you're a realtor, the multiple listing service to find those properties, or get with a realtor to find those properties. I think a lot of the investors are using PropStream. And so I think PropStream as a tool would be good for you. I think that's the best way.
And Greg, as a coaching student, how do we build or find a buyer's trust and trust those on that list after they've been recommended? Or if you are not interested in a property, how can they trust that next cash buyer or build trust?
It's just a matter of just doing your due diligence, just asking them all the right questions, making sure they qualify, making sure you have your paperwork in order, have them sign your contracts, put up the deposits, that kind of thing. I think, I often sell to people that I don't know, but I make sure that, I'm asking all the right questions, their experience, how they're financing. I make sure I get some type of letter, either a lender letter or some type of bank statement showing that they qualify. And then, like I said, make sure that all the paperwork is in order. I've had an investor that had the same situation, didn't do any of what I just said. The deal closed and he never got paid because his paperwork wasn't in order.
I think another part to that is knowing your numbers to begin with, using a Mayo formula. Yeah.
Okay. Like Karen said, you have to develop a relationship with that buyer. So anything else, Keith?
Yeah, a couple more. So what is the best way to be proactive relative to the processes after the marketing campaign starts, providing leads prior to actually receiving that first potential customer call? What's the best way to continue to be proactive?
You just got to keep marketing. You just got to keep marketing. And whatever that marketing is, if it's postcards, if it's cold calling, if it's auctions on Sunday, all I really did, and I was in Baltimore Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because all the properties that I picked, I wanted to make sure that everything was smooth when we actually viewed the property Sunday. So I went up to Baltimore. Well, you and I went Friday. I went Saturday, and then I went early Sunday morning. And I picked certain areas, certain foreclosures in certain areas. I wanted to make sure the lock boxes were there. I wanted to make sure the keys were in the lockbox, that kind of thing. And all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning, I ran into hurdles. And so you just have to go out. You can actually, because here's what I did for Sunday, and I forgot the question you just asked, but so hopefully I'm answering it. But here's what I did for Sunday. I picked 2 or 3 zip codes. I picked 21205 and 21223 because I didn't want to be all over Baltimore. So I picked those 2 zip codes. Plus, I knew that those 2 zip codes weren't far from Little Italy, where we were going to end the day at the restaurant. And then everything just came up 21205, which is part of it is Patterson Park. And so I went into the MLS, I went on Ashland Auctions, I went on Hubzu, and I went on AJ Billig, just looking for foreclosures in those zip codes. And so that's how we looked at what we looked at, because I just personally just wanted to stay there. I knew that Patterson Park, was B-C neighborhoods, which is good for us. I knew that, again, they were close to downtown. I knew that they were working class neighborhoods where we could, walk and all that. And so that's kind of how you did it. And that's how I did it for Baltimore. I found a ton of foreclosures, but even like Sunday morning, I got up in Baltimore. We weren't due till 10. I got up there about 8. And so the key wasn't in the lockbox. There's no lockbox. Another, the lockbox was on the main door, but the screen door was locked. So I couldn't even get to it was just sort of a comedy of errors all 3 days. And so you can, especially in Baltimore, pinpoint where you want to find your properties. And I will tell you guys, and I'm probably going to prove it on May 20th, even in areas like Prince George's County, every day of the week, especially now that the moratorium on foreclosures has been lifted a year ago. So now there's, unfortunately, it's starting to foreclose. You can find foreclosures every day in the areas that you want, in the price ranges that you want. So as for an investor, there's no excuse. And we will be every month now, we will be doing a foreclosure tour primarily for our Platinum coaching students. So there's real live properties that they can buy. I go over all the numbers. So I went over all the numbers on Sunday on what I think the offer should be, what we think the rehab cost should be, rental comps, whether it was a good BRRRR property or not. I mean, we went over all the numbers for everybody. And so if you're serious about buying properties like Dana was, we did that in DC. Dana bought that property, a foreclosure that we did, we did a house tour. We are going to be showing you real properties that you can buy. We'll mix that in with some of our students' properties too. It's always good to show what our students are doing. So we'll mix that in too. And Sunday we mixed it in with a renovated property to show sort of the before and after. And so that was good. That was a treat. That one property, the last one we looked at, had really nice finishes.
Beautiful. Yep. Greg, one more question. How much time should a wholesaler provide themselves relative to or while communicating with that potential seller and buyer to solidify a deal? Maybe that's a follow-up question. Like when should you follow up, in your opinion?
I mean, you're always following up once you're under contract. I only want to be under contract no more than 3 weeks. When I'm wholesaling, no more than 3 weeks. Do I want to be under contract? But so Ralph, I'll call you. Ralph's got a deal. It's kind of tricky because it's already under contract, and they're basically looking for sort of a backup contract, backup offer, or an offer where the first contract there's a contingency on that first contract. So the one that you're dealing with, Ralph, is not real typical of what we do, of what we deal with. Property that's on the market with an agent, it's already under contract. They're looking for a contract basically to kick out the first contract because they have a contingency. And so we'll talk more about that. I do have a guy in Waldorf that that may be interested. The problem with that is he's like, I don't want to be a backup contract. I don't, so that's that. So we'll talk about that. Carissa has a question. How do you build your portfolio up? And so I would say, Carissa, that you just keep buying. You buy your first property. You wait a period of time after to make sure that you get used to the rhythm of that property, your tenant, them making payments, that kind of thing. And then you move on to the next one. Or you refinance. If you're trying to use the BRRRR method, you refinance, get your money back, and then use that same money, to buy your next portfolio. As a rule, I would say just, buy one property a year. Start off there. Me and my daughter just talked right before the call. And so that's what we talked about. She said, yeah, I think I'm going to be ready this summer. She bought one last year. She said, I'm going to be ready this summer to buy another one, like one at a time. And then pretty soon you'll have cash flow and enough equity to either, refinance one to buy another one. Your cash flow will be built up. For her insurance policy, she's using her insurance policy. She can keep using that. But I would say to start off one a year. That's what I did. My goal was to buy one a year, and I did that. I was young, and I did that. That was my goal, one a year. All right. Anything else, Keith?
No. I like what you said, though. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, if you just buy one house a year, it's like you're winning, especially if you bought it right. For that year, you would have won because you bought it right, and now you've got that income coming in, that the equity that you're going to get, and then your net worth is going up.
Yeah. Your cash flow is going up, and your net worth is going up. I mean, we're buying properties at somewhere between 60,000, I'll say, and 100,000 in equity. So even on the low end, I'll say 60,000, which is really on the low end. I mean, your net worth is going up $60,000 a year, but it's really going up more because you're going to take advantage of appreciation. So just by owning a property, your net worth goes up because while the principal balance of your mortgage goes down, the value of your house through appreciation goes up, and what's in the middle is your equity, which contributes to your net worth. And so by buying one property a year, your net worth just goes up that much more. And so so I'm just going to do this, and then we're going to get out of here. and let's just use on the low end 60,000. You buy a house this year, 60,000 in equity, and let's say you bought it for, let's say it's worth today 200,000 on the low end. Let's say a Baltimore property is worth 200,000. You buy another house next year is worth 200,000, and so that's 400,000, you guys. That's 400,000. You got two properties together, they're worth 400,000. You multiply that 400,000 by, let's just say on the high, or let's just say 5%. It's 5%. Then you, by just owning the property, your net worth went up $20,000. At 10% went up $40,000, but you still have the equity because you bought the property right. And so you have that equity as well. Part of your goal is to get up to, like my goal is to get up to about, I think, $10 million, $10 million in real estate. So you want to get up to $10 million in real estate. Because if you can get there, and then if you can get 10% appreciation, you're making $1 million a year by just owning the properties. If they're appreciating at 10%, that's $1 million a year in appreciation you're making every single year by just owning the properties. And it's not that hard to get up to 10 million. It's not that hard. And so you kind of got to do the math that way. And why is that important? Why is that important? It's important because you can pull the cash out, the equity out to buy other properties. When you're going to get lines of credit, they take a look at that. What's your net worth? They take a look at that. We were in a meeting today, Keith, you and I, with some friends of ours who are really big in the government contracting arena, where our buddy just graduated from the 8A. It's called the 8A contracting, and he just got his daughter approved for 8A. So now he's sending all his contracts to his daughter. But one question they ask you in qualifying is what your net worth is. And so net worth is important. And so we build that up. But I think at the end of the day, we build that up so that we can pass that net worth on to our loved ones, to our children, our children's children. And part of the reason why we're on this call and we're interested in real estate investing is because, like I said, you're building wealth by just owning property. You're building wealth by just owning the property. And that, I think that's what's important. And just to bring this home even more, and just kind of personally, I owe about $500,000 on the house that I live in now. I've been here, I've gone through markets. And so, but at any rate, I could sell the house for about 1.5 million. So I've got $1 million in equity just by living here, where the principal balance has gone down, because I've been here since 2007. So the principal balance has gone down, and I've gone through markets. I bought the house during the recession, and then but at any rate, now it's appreciated to the point where I've got $1 million in equity just in this one property, and all I did was just live. I just lived and just let the economy and the sort of the principles of supply and demand was able to raise the property up through appreciation. When demand is high, property values go up, and we went through that the last couple of years. Property values going up, and then if you tack on like where you live and the equity that you have, and then the equity in one other property, then 2 other properties, then 3 other properties. You're just collecting cash flow from those other properties, just living in the one you're living in. And then you look up and you've got, wow, I've got, a few $1,000,000 in equity that I could cash in. I could cash in on the equity, at least 70% of it, do something with that tax-free and still own the assets and keep that ball rolling and give those assets to your children. And so that's why we invest in real estate. And that's how we build our net worth. And the importance of it is we can reinvest and build wealth. That's what's most important. I went off on a tangent. I don't even remember the question now. Hopefully I answered it. All right, you guys, we way past our bedtime. Thank you guys. If you need anything from us, you know how to get a hold of us. kbschedule.com. If you want an appointment with Keith, GB Schedule with me, DM me. Also, if you're not following me on Instagram, go to my Instagram, Greg Bennett Invest. There it is. Let's go. Let's do it, you guys. Let's do it. Let's take action. We're going to try to do our part in educating you, especially our platinum coaching students, so you would want to be one. But even more than that, we want to start showing you guys properties that you can buy, or at least how we find them so you can find them on your own. And that's the purpose. All right, Keith, I'm out of here. Long day.
All right.
I think the Miami Heat's winning last time I checked. So I'm gonna watch me some basketball.
You'll have to tell me about the Lakers and the Warriors. I'm going to bed.
Oh no. Yeah, the Heat's winning by 1. No, Lakers and the Golden State. I'm gonna wake up at 3 a.m. and find out who won. All right, you guys. Good night.